Good evening. As a preliminary matter, this is John Regan, Chair of the Auburn Planning Board. Permit me to confirm that all members are present. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Duarkesh Nallen.
Present.
Ronald Brooks.
Present.
Sierra Smara.
Present.
Jason Assarifi.
Present.
Glenn Feldman.
Present.
Town officials and employees participating, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Town Planner Dr. Adam Menard.
Here.
Staff Assistant Danielle Chamberlain Roberts.
Here.
Good evening. This open meeting of the Town of Auburn Planning Board of Tuesday, July 9, 2024 is now called to order at 7 p.m. This meeting is being conducted as a hybrid format under Chapter 22 of the Acts of 2022. For this meeting, the Planning Board is convening in person and by remote access. The remote access information has been posted on the town's website, identifying how the public may join. Please note that the meeting is being recorded by the Auburn Cablevision. Is there anyone here in the audience tonight recording tonight's meeting? Being none, accordingly, those members of the Planning Board, employees, and members of the public who participate remotely, please be aware that other folks may be able to see you, and please take care not to screen share your computer. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording. Please rise and join us in the salute to the flag.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All supporting materials that have been provided to members of this body are available on the town's website. I would like to remind the audience, applicants, town administration, and each of the planning board members to please refrain from asking questions in regards to all matters discussing this evening without being first granted my position. Each vote taken in this meeting will be conducted by a roll call vote. First on the agenda is applicant Dr. Syed M. Ali Tahir, requesting site plan approval under section 3.2.3.7 of the Auburn zoning bylaw for a cemetery at 0 Cemetery Road, Auburn, Mass. 01501, map 3, parcel 54. May I have a motion to open the hearing?
I'll make that motion.
May I have a second?
I second it.
All those in favor? Sierra?
Aye.
Marcus? Ron?
Aye.
Jason?
Aye.
Myself, John Regan, aye. It is a vote. It's open. Is there anyone here representing? Please go to the podium, state your name, your address, where you represent, please.
Hi, I'm Todd Curtin from Time Bond. I'm a licensed site professional. Time Bond's based out of Worcester, Mass. I have Dennis Moran from Time Bond with me. He's probably going to do most of the opening presentation. As far as what we're looking with, we have Saeed here, who's the applicant. So I probably would answer questions related to environmental concerns relative to the site. I guess the only thing I'd probably like to open up with as far as this site approval that we put in, it really just, and I think it says it in the application, it's a dual role here, a dual purpose. It's to address an unknown condition prior to this project ever starting, which we could talk about more certainly in our report, but that there was an undocumented dumping area that was there that was not discovered until our client purchased the property with the intention of building the cemetery. So in a lot of ways, not that it benefited him in any way, but it's certainly not there is a need to address that former dump, and the way to do that really is without removing a lot of material, which would be very, very costly, is to cap it, and that's where we're heading. And that's we have our full design that's not only to cap it but to also raise grades to create a cemetery, which we could get into any kind of detail, whatever detail level that you need. But the other thing before I turn over to Dennis is it's our understanding that the stormwater report went through third-party review. We did receive a copy of those comments were forwarded to us. I think they got to you today. So I don't know if there's been enough time on your end to review those, but we have a good appreciation of what's in there and what needs to be addressed, and I don't think there's anything too major on that front. So with that, I guess I'll turn it over to Dennis.
That's probably. You can hear me okay?
Yep.
Perfect. Good evening, everybody. Thank you, board. Appreciate the opportunity to get in front of you guys. So, just kind of following up on Todd's opening speech or spiel. I should start over. Dennis Moran with Time Bond. I'm a licensed professional engineer in the.
Gotta get close to the mic. We can't hear you now.
Sorry. I'll use my louder voice. So we're here in front of the planning board as our second step in this fairly lengthy process. We were in front of the Conservation Commission a couple weeks ago for a few hearings to discuss some impacts to the wetland buffers on the east side of the site. And we've been working with Dr. Adam and his staff for on and off the last 3 months, starting to prepare this application for your review. We're also aware of other local approvals from the DPW for major land disturbance, as well as Board of Health approval for this process. And we're also working with the state under the Mass Contingency Plan. That's more of Todd's role compared to my role in the project. So Mass DEP is very aware of the existing conditions on this property. So the site is on Cemetery Road in Auburn. And it's approximately 25 acres. The dumping ground is isolated to plus or minus 8 acres. Actually, 4 acres. Thank you. And the proposed disturbance as part of this project is 8 acres. Thanks for the correction on that. So the existing waste area with this dumping is generally composed of C&D, construction demolition debris. It is not, to the best of our knowledge, MSW, municipal solid waste, or like contaminated hazardous waste. It is generally composed, from what we can see, based on numerous test pits and borings and explorations, of glass, wood debris, roofing, bricks, concrete. Am I generally grabbing everything?
Yeah.
Okay. So from a hazardous standpoint, we have no indication that it's hazardous material. There are some contaminants in the groundwater in the area that we've been monitoring and working with DEP to come up with the appropriate monitoring plan to ensure that that contamination is isolated to the parcel and not being transported off site. The goal of the project is to first bring in material to raise the grades and adequately cap the existing waste on site, and then because it's a waste site, there aren't a lot of future uses, but a cemetery would be a suitable location or a suitable reuse for this parcel. It would also be placed eventually, if this were to move forward, at an AUL to protect or to document the fact that this area is now a waste site that has been properly capped, and that there's no future use that could be detrimental to human health for this area. So approximately 100,000 plus or minus cubic yards of material will be brought in that meets or matches the existing characteristics of the soil on site. So the goal is to not bring in material that is chemically worse, that brings in more contaminated material. The goal is to match, so we have an idea of what the existing waste material is on site, both the soil and the material, and the imported soils will be below that threshold. So we're not looking to bring in material that is going to add to the disturbance, if I'm explaining that correctly, or add to the impacts. So all the material coming in will be tested. Is it 1,000 cubic yards of material, or by the truckload?
Yeah, the one thing I just want to add to that the material that's coming in is not considered what's under the MCP remediation waste that would be used. It's actually less than the contaminants levels are low, but it's like the kind of material you run into like in development in an urban environment, and so it's what's called less than RCS1 soil. There's a lot of information on that Mass DEP's put out there as far as the use of that kind of material, and this is a suitable use as far as trying to raise grades. And Dennis will get to the there is a testing component for the material that comes in that makes sure that is less than RCS1. But the finished grades and where the cemetery is, the upper soils will be clean soils, just so that's out there too.
So the site will be brought up to, I'll say, subgrade, which is the lowest elevation or depth for burial, and then the material between the RCS1 soils, the imported material to cap the existing C&D waste up to finished grade will be clean material. So that way, the future use digging of cemeteries, the applicant or plots, the applicant does not have to deal with material that they can't dispose of. So that'll all be below a certain elevation that will be demarcated with, it's typically orange snow fence. That's all part of the deed. It's well described. So from a site plan or planning board view, there will be a proposed paved 24-foot wide access road going up to the plateau area with a turnaround area, parking stalls for visitors and family members, as well as a drainage system. The slope plateau area has been maximized for the allowance of as many plots as possible, just to make this a financially feasible project, or make it so it can actually move forward with both capping the existing waste and being able to actually move forward with the cemetery. As you could probably imagine, it's significantly expensive to try to remediate a site somewhat unexpectedly. So the end goal is to use this cemetery as an Islamic faith cemetery. There's virtually none in the area in Massachusetts, so there's a need for it. There's no utilities on site from water or electric. The site will be gated. We did receive comments, and I know you got them like 5 hours ago, so you probably haven't even looked at them. Greg's recommended that there's some formalities that we have to address on the drawings. Pretty straightforward. They did have some questions or comments related to the stormwater design that I think are more than reasonable, and we should be able to address them. From there, the site will be gated, landscaped, planted with low grow, low maintenance grass for the capped area, which is basically a lawn. There's some stormwater diversion berms as well, and settling basins, and entire stormwater collection system that generally meets Mass stormwater regulations, and they did review that as well as the Conservation Commission, who's kind of jointly reviewed. And I'm kind of going at a very high level, and I'm happy to answer questions to not go into the full details. But this is going to be a multi-phase project of capping the waste and then almost switching over to a finished or stabilization of the site and getting ready for the plots bringing in. So long duration project that will have some significant stormwater controls, dust mitigation. I would expect ongoing third-party observation from an erosion control, stormwater management, which is probably the biggest, at least from my perspective, concern that the community should have or would have, just because it's a multi-seasonal project bringing in a large amount of material to the town that needs to be stabilized. So all things that we're aware of and we expect to have to navigate through during this process. The cemetery portion, in my opinion, is fairly easy once we get there. Other than that, the application that you have in front of you walks through the performance standards, general use of the project, truck trips or visitor trips during the end use of the project for the cemetery. We expect to be very, very minimal. There will be traffic during the construction and the remediation of the site. I think you're probably aware of how much material is coming in. As I mentioned, 100,000 yards. So we are aware of the temporary impacts related to trucking that is expected. And unfortunately, it's either bringing in material to cap the waste or exporting the material out. So it's generally the same. And then there would be no future use for the cemetery. So that is kind of the alternatives analysis of why we're selecting as the team to import material, other than it allows the future use of the cemetery and makes it financially possible to remediate the site. Do you have anything to add to that?
No, I'm actually just gonna chime in for Dennis. Dennis has a lot of history with the indoor doing landfill design work. and if there's any question on, this is not a landfill in the sense that it's not regulated under Massachusetts solid waste landfill regulations. It's actually regulated under Massachusetts contingency plan because it's the release to the environments, to the soil. It was not a documented or a permitted landfill, and the time frame for when this was used was prior to the landfill regulations. So under the Mass DEP, they give you, mostly they steer you towards the MCP world instead of landfill regs, and that's where we're in. But just for the design purposes, Time Bond does a lot of landfill work, and in a sense, this is as far as what we're doing for capping it, and ultimately raising those grades and creating ultimately a beneficial use at the top with the cemetery. But that's pretty much the experience that we have in designing these and the stormwater and all that factored into how we were able to get this project rolling.
So I guess I will turn over to questions or comments or concerns from the board.
Does anyone in the audience have
The
any
public?
questions? You have to step up.
Sorry, you have to.
You have to step up to the podium, identify yourself.
Evening. Where are the access roads to the cemetery? To this.
Oh, access road, okay.
Do you want to?
No, I got it.
Okay, you got it. So the access will be off Cemetery Road on the the west side of Cemetery Road. There is a existing access road, but it's not on the property. It's a couple, I'll say 30 feet to the south of the existing, very unmaintained access road.
So I live on Barbara Ave. We got letters notifying that this is going to abut our properties, and I kind of just want to understand how and why and where they're going to abut our properties, and if there's any access coming from Barbara Ave to the cemetery or any plan of that happening.
I would have to look at a map, but
Barbara Ave, right over here?
I'm sorry. My mistake, that's my old address. I apologize. Sunrise Ave. I apologize. Sunrise Ave.
so
On the screen,
do you have?
laptop.
My guess is you're on the other side of the parcel. It's a large parcel.
On the other side of the parcel.
Okay.
West of it.
It is a large parcel. We all own property to one parcel.
Correct, and that's half of the, is this part of the course? This type of a situation that they just cap it, are they allowed to?
Could you turn, time out. Excuse me. Could you please turn around and address the board? I know he's a homeowner, but you still haven't identified yourself yet.
Nick Armstrong,
Address?
15 Sunrise Ave. My apologies.
Do you want me to say that? Nick Armstrong,
You missed the
15
whole
Sunside.
conversation you had with him.
Yep.
So he's asking about the access.
Correct. He is at the question to the board or the applicant is, how is the site being accessed? And he lives on Sunrise Ave. So my guess is he's probably concerned if he's going to be directly impacted, and Adam was nice enough to bring this up on the screen.
Yep. Correct. So this is the designated plot where they're going to put the cemetery. Okay.
On that right off the west side of Cemetery Road. So there's no access from that dead end that you're on, that Sunset Ave. You're up by that, going towards the top of the hill, right, where the power lines are. The power line right away is up there.
I will highlight this for the board and people out in the internet. The general location of the work in the dumping ground is in this area northeast of the utility right away. My understanding from the public comment, so Nick, sorry, is that you live generally in this vicinity. So it's a decent distance away, and access is not proposed off Sunset Ave or Sunrise Ave or through the power lines, and access will be maintained from Cemetery Road and ultimately, Stratford Street.
So can you show us on the map right there where your access road's gonna come in?
We are approximately, let me find myself.
You are coming in off of Stafford Street, correct?
Yes. So traffic will turn from Stratford Street down South Cemetery Road and then go by the cemeteries and then access the site off a new or improved access road off Cemetery Road and go to the west.
It's a driveway, basically, entrance that we're creating in a road that's on the property itself. So nothing on the actual public right-of-way road, cemetery road. So on this, we're in between the two houses that you see. The house to the south with the pool that you see down there is, I forget, is that 20 Cemetery? Yeah, 20 Cemetery Road. And then the house to the north, which straddles Leicester, is 12 to 14 Cemetery Road. And we're right in between those two.
Does anybody on the board have any questions? Glenn?
You registered this site with Mass DEP?
From a wetlands perspective, yes, as well as from a DEP for the mass contingency plan. So we were actively,
With relationship to it being a formal landfill?
so it.
So we actually met with the Mass DEP office, the Bureau of Waste Site Cleanup, a year ago now, right? In June, I think. And we were just discussing about possible options for what we could bring in for materials to help cap this site, and really just explaining the situation that our client got into in purchasing this property and not knowing that was there. So we didn't talk to them about the cemetery per se, but they have always known that was the intent of why our client purchased the property. But what happened is that when some explorations were done in 2022 prior to time bomb by another consultant, they found contaminant levels in soils that triggered what's called a reportable condition, with high enough levels. Lead is the primary contaminant of concern in soil, which is not uncommon for urban type fill and or just kind of demolition waste. Could be from paint, could be from a lot of things that were in the things that were demolished. But so it's got a release tracking number, if you're familiar with that world, a release tracking number under the Massachusetts contingency plans. And we've made submittals to Mass DEP on that. And we're going to continue to make submittals following this relative to the cleanup design. And ultimately what happens is we're going to close out that release tracking number with what's called a permanent solution. That permanent solution is going to have what Dennis referenced as an activity use limitation on the property deed. It's assigned to the property deed forever unless it ever got cleaned up differently. But basically all it's going to say is if you dig down at this site and expose those soils that are going to be buried, basically the contaminated soils, you just have to manage them properly. Otherwise maintain the cap and maintain what's there. And in some cases, we're going to have that contamination. It's going to be almost 30 feet below grade, 20, 30 feet below grade because of how much we have to raise grades to create the plateau for the cemetery. But yes, so Mass DEP's more aware than that's a privatized program, the Massachusetts Contingency Plan. So I'm an LSP. That's what I put my stamp on those. I go to the Mass DEP for those. But they have been involved in the process to this point, early on at least. And they, we make submittals or a public record that will be going forth. We've already made some submittals for the site for reports under that release tracking number, and we'll be making more going forward.
Have you done anything that says whether it's hazardous or not, and you're just using that as an analogy, or that there is lead and there is, or that it's primarily construction material?
Yeah, the lead that's in the soils, it's not considered hazardous waste. I mean, we're not generating it and moving it and doing anything with it. But typically, if there was more of a concern, you would have contaminant levels. Like if it was leaching out at high concentrations, you would have it in groundwater. We don't have metals in groundwater. That's a concern. The only thing we had, Dennis mentioned it briefly, there's one volatile organic compound that's just above. This area is considered what's called a GW1 area because there's private wells to the north and south at those residences. There's no public water supply that that services that area, both in Auburn and Leicester. So you have to compare it to the most stringent levels, and we had one contaminant that's just slightly above, which is GW1, and it's at the central portion of the site. Or where the dumping area is, but we have monitoring wells to the north and south and along next to Cemetery Road that are cleaner. And because it's been 40 years since the use of this as a dumping area, it stopped in the 80s, about 40, because it was the 80s. Yeah. So you can see it as far as historic areas. You can see the growth. You can see when it used to be all cleared in the 60s. And you could actually see some of the stuff they were probably doing. But then it just started to fill in, come into the 90s when they stopped. There's a little bit in the Board of Health files in the town on the suspect dumping area, something like that. But there's nothing else. There's no permission was ever given, certainly no Mass DEP file number relative to being a solid waste dump or anything like that. So that's really the time frame. But with that, I guess the point I was just trying to make relative to the groundwater, it's been that long, and we just have a little blip right in the center of the site, and we don't think that's really a cause of concern because it's not going to change.
DEP is going to allow you to fill it? Is that already established?
Yeah, DEP, they have the option relative to the Bureau of Wayside Cleanup to audit and or look at anything. We want to be upfront with them prior to getting all these permits, or after we get all these permits, we probably would be in front of them again. And that's just a courtesy. It's not needed. I put my stamp on it as far as saying that, this meets the Massachusetts contingency plans and we're doing the right thing here. But to have that take from their end and get their perspective and see if they have any red flags. They have a general understanding what we're looking to do, but we probably will get in front of them after we get these permits. They probably won't have anything written if there's anything looking from the planning board. That's not their MO, if you will. Unless there's something that's placed on like some consent order or something like that would force their hand to say that's approved. So because there's no approval process under the Massachusetts contingency plan. They could always audit. They could also look at any time, stop work and see what's the plan is. But again, we don't want to start this project without them understanding where we're going and have buy-in, at least verbally, that we're not causing any concerns.
From where you fill the material, from where you're filling and capping with, wherever there would be a body, that would be an all virgin material.
Yes.
Anywhere near the contaminant.
Yeah, we've got an 8-foot separation. Yeah, so there's going to be a good separation between where we stop bringing in that sort of low-level contaminated soils. Never mind the contaminated soils that are there that are much higher. But the stuff that we bring in to raise grades, and the reason being is because
The stuff you're bringing in is a low-level contamination?
it's called less than RCS1 soil. It's not remediation waste. It's not something that's regulated under the Mass MCP. But a lot of projects in this state can't find homes for this stuff. It's like if you go in a virgin land and dig out soils, you can find a home for that easily. But if you're in an area that has a little bit of history, from, a lot of urban environments from, the old, the way we used to burn coal. Coal's a major reason why you sample in someone's, even in backyard in urban environments, you may have a higher levels than you would anticipate. Lead's another one. That's the kind of contaminants that we have there, but we have them at higher levels. We're bringing in stuff that's non-regulated, not stuff that goes to landfill as cover material, because that's different. That is regulated material, regulated soil. We deal with that a lot. Dennis deals with that a lot on the other side from the landfill. I deal with it from my cleanup site for MCP stuff, but that's not what we're looking to do. We're looking to bring in low levels of mildly contaminated soils that aren't regulated waste, and there is at least a cost implication for our client relative to be able to make this project feasible, because to get rid of that soil, you could at least, the charge is a little bit there. You could do something that way versus getting clean native virgin material to raise the grades that we need to make the cemetery and to cap it all the way we're just talking about. The cost will be astronomical. So that's the benefit.
Something that would ensure us that low-level contaminated soil you were going to put in, which is 100,000 yards, which is significant.
It,
Something in the DEP or something formal that says that it would cause no further contamination to any of those wells or anything else in the town of Auburn.
Yeah, we could bring that up. Yeah, and what I could forward to the board too, there's a policy called the similar soil provision policy, and that's what we're following, where you can allow for the use of similar soils which are at or less than, we're less than the contamination that's present at your property. So, but I understand the concern that you're potentially making things worse, but
Other than that, I think it's a great idea. I think it's great to recover it, do whatever, finish it off nice and,
great.
just that concern there.
Sure.
So, I was gonna, if I may, add some additional color on the process. So, theoretically, say we got approved tomorrow, we're ready to bring in material. What happens is that somebody like Todd, who's an LSP, which is a licensed site professional, different than a PE professional engineer, if you generate 500 yards of soil, you have to test that material, and then a third party has to say, yes, this is at or below the contamination level of that site. RCS1, they stamp that, and that goes to,
It will be internal records this way, but certainly if the site got audited, that's part of it. But there's a process for receiving. Landfills do this themselves. Some landfills have cover materials, and some landfills, like there's one in Grafton that has in less than RCS1. They use that for shaping or grading around the landfill. So in those areas, they don't have contamination, from the landfill, like the solid waste landfill. So there is a process, and it will be well established. There's going to be a soil management plan in place. And there's going to be a requirement to sample at least one. We put it on the facility that wants to bring the soils there, and we'll be working with the soil broker that does this all the time. There's a couple of them that do this are nearby, like WL French, that just deal with less than RCS1 soils, that deal with worse soils too. But yes, there'll be a process for checks and balances to make sure that we're bringing in stuff that's really not that bad.
but there's no reason why the town can't be. If it's a interest to the planning board or the community, like maybe Board of Health is the best
Absolutely.
forward to deal with that. Every single slip that comes through, you guys got an email, a copy.
Yeah.
So you can track, and it's not what I do, but there's bill of ladings and everything else, weight slips, volumes, and then that testing criteria, which is a T-clip, which is a total toxicity.
Yeah.
Oh, what I-
Total metals, and there's a good question actually, and I'm just going to get way into the weeds for that question. There are some metals and some contaminants that have a leaching component. That's a concern that it could get into groundwater. So if you're above a certain threshold, you have to do what's called a T-clip, and you do that analysis. And it would have to be, because if it is above it, it's a hazardous waste. We would never accept that. But yes, there's a lot that goes into that. The type of contaminants that we're talking about too are what bind to soils. We wouldn't be taking contaminants or contaminant levels like organic type, like petroleum impacted soils, at higher levels, or the other thing I was mentioning before, VOCs. It's not those kinds. It's not the kind that like to travel well. It's stuff that just binds to soils and just stays. And metals and pHs are primarily what it is that we'd be looking at.
We don't have any questions for Rakesh?
Thank you, Todd and Dennis. So, a couple of questions. I think one for Adam. Do we have to wait for the Conservation Commission's ruling? No. We can move forward with our decision. The two other questions is, is there a building on site?
Currently, there is no building on the site. I think and there's no planned building. Say, do you want to? Actually, there's no building on site. Sorry.
Then I think from the site plan and the map, there is a right of way. As I think you guys mentioned that I think National Grid's right of way. So, do you have you had conversations with National Grid?
So, we have not reached out to them directly, but we're also not really impacting them. So the cemetery and the waste area is all north of their right of way.
I see. Okay.
So, yeah, I would agree they're probably fairly difficult to work with, or it takes a long time. Maybe not.
Got a couple of questions. So when you say cap the existing landfill that's there, what are you capping it with? It's not your fill material.
So
Is there a clay layer? Is it an HDPE layer?
no, so this is a soil cap that is allowed under the mass contingency plan. It is not a landfill, so it's regulated. It's definitely different than what I do, but given that the debris or the waste material in the site, Mass DEP and the mass contingency plan allows for a soil cap. So basically, there's enough soil cover to help reduce infiltration so it reduces infiltration into the waste mass. It also prevents contact from a human perspective contact, so it's deep enough down.
It all depends on the type of soil you bring in, whether it reduces infiltration or not. If it's got a lot of clay, it's going to slow it down. If it's mostly gravel,
correct.
it's going to let it go through.
But
One or the other. Where's the soil coming from?
the soil would come from any location it could come from Worcester, it could come from, if
You don't have a source yet.
not for that volume of soil.
No.
Any sources
Not-
that have committed to you that they'll bring the landfill once the project's approved and all that stuff?
Correct. So it's fairly. So the way the soils market works in Massachusetts, it's almost like a commodity that most people don't realize. So if they're excavating a new foundation in Boston that's 100 by 100 by 50 feet deep, they need to go find, like, part of the bidding before they even put a shovel in the ground. Most developers will know where that material is going, and it just by pure luck, it's probably downtown Boston, because it's all fill land, is probably exceeding the levels that this site will take.
I was gonna say, if you're digging it out of Boston, it's not gonna make their levels.
It,
That's what
it,
gets
it
you.
depends. It
You
might,
might
but
find a nice fill spot in Boston, but I doubt it.
it would not support, like, Springfield, Worcester, any type of larger project within the Commonwealth. So smaller contractors will call some of the bigger contractors that deal with soil, and they say, "Hey, I have 100 yards. Do you have a home for it?" And they're moving soils, large volumes of soils a day, and sites are filling up so that the larger developers like WL French, Charter Environmental, who else? Lot Trucking.
Have you guys talked to Eastland Partners or
So, who is that?
Eastland Partners? They're doing the big development out here on Route 20. They're doing another development over here off
But
Route 12.
That kind of stuff makes sense, right? So yes, we leave it to the contractors. They're the ones trying to win projects and make the cheapest option. So they are going to look locally, right? So if there is, yes, so the projects are 20,000 cubic yard project being generated. We're 1/5 of the way there for what we're looking for that kind of soil. So smaller projects can be accepted too, because there's going to be that stream, there's going to be that process. They're going to have to sample the soil, submit all the data to us for review and approval prior to coming to make sure it meets our parameters at less than RCS1. And that's, again, we're only focused on that type of soil. The virgin soil, we don't have a set place for yet, but that I'm hoping is more local because that gets even more costly. But yeah,
When the soil's tested from its source, what is the frequency of testing? One every 500 yards?
yes,
Pretty much standard.
pretty standard, yes.
And then, where does the stormwater tie into?
So there's currently no stormwater system on the site. There is. How detailed do you want me to get? Sorry. How detailed do you want me to get? So we did an entire stormwater analysis for the project. The peak or the pre-condition flows and the post-condition flows from a quantity of water flowing off-site are remain the same. So all the paved areas are collected and conveyed through a closed system to both treat total suspended solids to meet mass stormwater regs, and that goes into a few different systems. There's a couple proposed detention basins on the parcel to reduce the runoff rates to match the pre-existing conditions, because we're adding additional impervious. The end result is that it flows down the slope into some detention bases, and then there's a existing culvert on that goes through the existing driveway. So there'll be a culvert under the proposed driveway that then goes across to the east towards, I guess I could look at the map, across Cemetery Road to a wetland area on the east side of Cemetery Road. So,
So you're building the cemetery over an existing quote unquote landfill area.
yes.
Worried about compaction of what's underneath?
Given that the waste material has been there for 40 years,
Oh,
there could be some compaction. The nice thing about C&D, with the exception of wood, like brick, concrete, glass, metal, it doesn't decompose.
talk to the city of Lynn.
Lynn,
Built their high school on a landfill and it sunk.
yep.
And they did the compaction and it didn't work.
So, and the nice thing about a cemetery, the worst case from a cemetery is the settlement, which is actually not uncommon on a cemetery because when they dig for the plots of the graves, they usually don't compact them well as well. So, from a maintenance perspective, if there was settlement, it's not there's not a building on it. So,
Secondly, if I may add, I know we don't have it in front, and I apologize if we didn't bring something up. Half of the cemetery actually is not on the dumping area. More the access on the east side is that the dump goes up to, or not to the road, but close to the road, because it's a pretty steep slope there, and that's where they were bringing it in, and they were sort of raising things there because there's a lot of boulders that are around that area. As you go up the hill to the west, that's where the ledge gets more shallow. So they must have brought it in and sort of just rose grades in an area in a lower spot. But half the cemetery area, maybe even only a third, is really actually going to be over where the dumping area is. And in that area, we're probably going to have about 15 to 20 feet of soil between the RCS1 soil and then the clean soil on top of it. The western side of the cemetery is going to be on native soil that's underneath it. So, and only native soil or clean soil brought to that area as well.
So am I to the understanding that during the burial, because of religious purposes, there is no vaults?
sorry, I had a hard time hearing you.
No vaults for the gravesite.
So there will be vaults, but there won't be caskets.
Pardon me?
There will be vaults, but no caskets.
No caskets.
Okay.
So they're
Those are sealed, right?
precast concrete vaults that are underground.
It gets the bitumastic seal at the top or the butyl rubber.
Exactly, to the spiritual beliefs and their procedure. It's somewhat different than probably most of us are used to, but so no actual caskets, but a vault that would meet the Board of Health standards and regulations.
So you have an 8,000 acre site, right?
Did you say 8 acre?
8 acre site,
Yeah.
what I meant.
Okay.
And you're only going to be using actually 2 acres for the cemetery. In your book,
Cemetery, yeah, the cemetery area, I forget the square footage.
it says 2 acre in your book.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
2,000.
probably accurate.
But the roadway, landscaping that we're gonna have coming down from the road, there's, that's all gonna be developed, if you will, but
The topography of the site is less than ideal for development.
But if it's a 2 acre site for the actual burials,
Correct.
it's 2,000 grave sites. That's only a little over 45 square feet. That's 4.5 by 10.
That's
That's not, is that big enough?
so. Correct
I don't know
me if
what
I'm
the
wrong.
regulation
That you actually put 2 bodies on top of each other vertically.
So
That's not the question. The question is, when you excavate for a vault, the vault's not gonna be 2 feet wide by 1 foot thick, right?
the thickness of the,
Body's wider than 2 feet.
I guess the question is the vault. Some of the graves will be double tier, some will be single tier, but all the burial process will take place in virgin soil, the soil above the cap. Is that the question?
No, he's asking about the.
My question is, what's the average Dimensions of
what is the
pole.
dimensions you mean, right? So it's
Of
almost
pole.
2.5 feet by 8 feet or something like that.
Tight
It is.
with the excavation, real tight.
Well, if you get cremated, you don't even need that.
True. Are you gonna allow cremated?
No, it's not allowed. That's the reason. So
I didn't think so.
So going back to that 2,000 graves, our community is small. It's going to be a denominational cemetery. It's going to last us for a good 40 years. And the reason for doing it is basically cremation is prohibited in our faith, and it's more and more people are heading that direction. So my this is all going to be a non-profit project from my standpoint. So I just want to create a very cheap burial grounds for them.
It's not gonna be cheap.
Or well, we'll see. For the customers, I think it will be cheaper.
So, we have not received the peer review yet ourselves,
Yep.
so we cannot say yay or nay tonight, just I want to let you to know that. So, would you like to continue to the next meeting that we have available, which is in August?
I think that would be, if you give me the date, I would, yes, please.
May I have a motion to continue this to our next meeting, which I believe is August 13th?
I'll make that motion.
May I have a second?
I second it.
All those in favor? Smile? Rakesh? Ron?
Aye.
Yourself, John Regan, and I, it is a vote.
And we will prepare a response to comments with revised drawings, and
We have to have that so many days before the meeting, so we all have a
we'll
chance.
work with Adam and make sure that you guys get everything in a timely manner.
They're not gonna do that till they get the soil tested. They don't have that yet. They don't have the soil.
And I think it's, you know, a condition or a condition precedent of the approval would be that the Board of Health is copied on all correspondence. I would expect that condition, or I think it's a, you know, a condition that helps protect the community. So you're not caught in the dark. You guys have an idea of what's going on. It also gives you an idea without having somebody out there every day of how much material is coming in. So really appreciate the time and hope you guys
Well,
have a
thanks for your
July.
presentation.
Thank
Thank you very much, guys. We'll see you next time.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman? Mr. Chairman, I have a question. Will we be hearing from Darlene at all, from the Board of Health about this?
That would come under when we say whether we approve it or not. That
Okay.
if she hasn't, if they haven't talked to her yet, then that would be a condition of the approval that she has, they have to meet the Board of Health requirements as far as layout and all that stuff.
So we're required to go in front of the Board of Health for the cemetery, but not actually the capping, but I don't think they should be mutually exclusive.
She was looking for the layout of the grave sites.
Yep.
Roads, all that stuff.
Yeah, and we'll definitely prepare that for her.
Wasn't anything drastic.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda tonight, 7:05 PM, sorry for the wait, is applicant Carlos de la Garza for Flip Circus LLC requesting a special permit under section 3.2.5.5 of the Auburn zoning bylaws for a temporary circus at the Auburn Mall, 385 Southbridge Street, Auburn, Mass. 01501, map 33, parcel 87. Is there anyone here representing the Flip Circus?
Good afternoon. Yes, sir. I am on the phone. I apologize. I cannot be there in person.
Can't hear him.
Want to vote to open the hearing?
Can you
Vote to open the hearing?
hear me? Hello? Hold on. Let me.
May I have a
Hold on.
motion to open the hearing, please?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second it.
All those in favor, Smart,
Aye.
Rakesh, Ron,
Aye.
myself, John Regan, and I, it is a
Is this? Hello?
You'll have to speak up. I can barely hear you.
Okay, I'm doing my best. Hello, my name is Carlos, and I'm with Flip Circus. I apologize I cannot be there today. From a distance.
We can hear you now.
Oh, you can hear me now? Okay, wonderful.
Yeah,
Okay,
please
great.
identify yourself
my-
first, please.
My name is Carlos de la Garza. My address is 2119 Turtle Lane, Mission, Texas 78572.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
So just give us a quick rundown of what your circus is about. I read your little explanation that you would so graciously given the town to read, but just give a little more information if you would, please.
Sure. Flip Circus is a traveling circus that is based out of Texas, and it's a sister company to Circus Vasquez, which has been in business for over 30 years. This circus is a family-owned circus. It's a family show, a sit-down show with no animals. It's a arts-based show, more of a cirque style. It is performed inside a circus tent with seating. It's a climate-controlled, air-conditioned circus tent. We do not serve any alcohol. And like I said, it is a family event, and it's a 2-hour show that is put on there inside the tent. We do bring in a circus tent that is 100 feet wide by 155 feet long that is professionally engineered and permitted with the town and everything. It is state of the art, and it is a flame resistant tent. And like I said, this circus has been traveling in the Northeast for the past 3 years. This is a newer version. And currently we are in Salem, New Hampshire. We've been in Berlin, Massachusetts, down the road from you on the other side of Worcester. And we are heading actually tonight over into West Hartford, Connecticut.
When did you want to do the circus here in Auburn?
So the circus dates are August 21st through September 4th. And that would include setup and tear down. So we would set up from the 21st to the 23rd. And we would have shows from the 23rd through the 3rd of September. And the shows run Monday to Friday from 7:30 to 9:30. And on weekends, Saturday and Sunday, we have 3 shows at 1 o'clock, 4 o'clock, and 7 o'clock.
Does anyone in the audience have any questions? None? Anybody on the board have any questions? Go ahead, Rakesh.
Thank you, Carlos. So one question I have is, I think from the narrative, you mentioned maximum of 800 people. Is there how are you guys looking to limit entry there? Is it just purely based on the tickets?
No, so the seating inside tent is 800 persons. That is the maximum amount of tickets we could sell. We do average during the week, Monday to Friday, about 300 tickets sold, and that's our average that has been so far. And on weekends, we'll get up to about 400 to 450 tickets sold.
Then the other question is, have you discussed the plan with Auburn PD and Fire?
Yes, sir, we have. We did have a meeting there at the town hall with all the different departments. And we did discuss parking. We did discuss fire access, safety as well. We do have trained crowd managers. We do have, security on site. And like I said, it's a family show. It's a very clean and sit-down show. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful show.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the board?
Yes, I was interested in what kind of entertainment, as far as, could you give us an example of?
Sure. Well, we do have trapeze artists and aerial acts from Ukraine, from Italy. We do have clowns that are from Russia and also from France. We have 2 different clowns, and we do have a big unicyclist that will go up actually about 14 wheels up into the air. It's a really neat show, but it's all an arts-based show, so it's really intriguing, very captivating. The tent is it's such a small tent that, everything is so up close and personal. So you get to really soak it in. It's just, you really have to see it, but it's a wonderful show. Very captivating and very entertaining.
Thank you.
Anyone else on the board have any questions? May I have a motion to approve the special permit?
Close it first.
Oh, yeah. May I have a motion to close the hearing, please?
I'll make the motion to close the
May I have
hearing.
a second?
I'll second it.
Favor, Sarah?
Aye.
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 Myself, John Reeves, and I. May I have a motion to approve the special permit for the Flip Circus?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor, Sarah?
Aye.
Yes, Ron? Jason?
Aye.
Myself, John Regan, aye. Is it a vote? You're all set.
Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. You all have a wonderful evening.
Next on the agenda is applicant J.P. Morgan Chase requesting special permit and site plan approval under section 3.2.5.11 of the Auburn zoning bylaws for bank with drive-through at 368 Southbridge Street, Auburn, Mass. 01501, map 33, parcel 81. This was continued from our June 11th meeting. They would like to continue till our next meeting. So our next meeting in August, may I have a motion to continue?
To continue?
May I have a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Hey,
Aye.
Myself, John Regan, and aye. It is a vote. Next on the list is applicant CEMS LLC, care of Henry Resnikoff, requesting a special permit and site plan approval under section 3.2.5.3 of the Auburn zoning bylaw for a coffee shop at other site improvements at 602 Southbridge Street, Auburn, Mass. 01501, map 56, parcel 148. This was continued from our May 28th planning board meeting. They would like to continue to our next meeting. May I have a motion to continue to our next meeting?
So moved.
May I have a second?
how many continuances are they gonna need?
I'll try to get some more information from them for the next meeting or have them provide some kind of update. I'll have them provide some specifics for the next meeting when what the
I would think so, because it's been a lot of continuances already.
May I have
I'll
a
second it.
All those in favor, Samara?
Aye.
Rakesh, Ron?
Aye.
Jason? Myself, John Regan, and I. Under, next on the list is discussion of reorganization. We'll postpone that till after we do the modification for Wagner Motors, 460 Southbridge Street. Is there anyone here representing Wagner Motors?
Yes, sir. Neil McCann from Garrett and Holland, representing Wagner Motors. I haven't presented to the board before. Can you put a PDF up on the screen, or should it just use the plan?
just use the plan. I don't have a PDF.
He says use the plan, I guess.
Okay. Do you have copies of my plan?
Yep.
Okay. So there's three items. One is the floor drain has been extended and taken out to the sewer on this right-hand side of the building. It has to go through a oil water separator outside the building before it's attached to the sewer. That's to take out some of the, and it's prevent gases from getting back into the building. Second item is or the most important item that we're here for is they want to have a storage area during the day for the motorcycles that they'll be servicing in here. It's a situation where there'll be no storage at, outside of the working hours. But they're proposing a 9-foot concrete sidewalk on the rear of the building. And then in that, they have, in an area that's 73 feet long, they're proposing where they're going to actually store these bikes during that service period of the day. So they would, the customers would come in through the building, and then it would be brought around through the building and then out. We also had to add in a 5-foot strip beyond the 9-foot so that the bikes can move out and around and in. So that's the second item that's proposed on here. There's also an extension of that sidewalk of 6 feet initially to get to the first store, and then after that it's 4 feet out to the driveway. And I believe it's for the purpose of walking around the building, but it's also for potential if people are coming in with their bikes, they could come on that sidewalk and bring it around. The third item is that the architects changed one of the door locations. So the issue is it's right where it would interfere with a couple of the parking spaces on this north end of the parking. So we're taking out 2 spaces and then rearranging the parking along the front here. We ended up putting back the same amount of spaces. We narrowed the parking, the handicap to 8 foot where they are, and we also provided an extra ramp to get into the door. So those are the 3 items that are proposed in this modification.
Does anyone have any questions? Rakesh? Ron?
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Go ahead, Glenn.
Yeah, when trucks come in to deliver the bikes, where do they park?
They're going to be delivering back in here, so they'll be backing in and around to this loading dock. Oh, there's a loading dock, okay.
I know it's minimal concrete being added here, but would that change any of your runoff calculations?
Well, I thought about that, I didn't go forward with it, but we could provide an infiltration, but I hadn't proposed that. It's just, since it was so minimal, I didn't know that it would be required, but we could do that if you want that.
It's a good question. Not only with the concrete for your walkway and the added concrete to get to the building so you can go back and forth, you also have a roof over that area which is going to shed water also, which will increase your runoff.
Well, it's the same runoff for the whole sidewalk is 9 feet plus the pavement, yes. I mean, the roof, the roof portion is no wider than the sidewalk, it's actually a foot shorter. But in other words, that pavement area 9 feet across the back is a consistent width.
So when that water comes off the roof or the sidewalk, where does it go?
I'm sorry, it goes into the grass area in the back and it comes over to the side.
Catch
So
basin?
I can easily put in an infiltration catch basin at this corner right here.
That's just a dry well basically with stone around it, right? It's not going anywhere.
Right.
Is there any available drainage on the site you could tie that into?
No, there isn't.
But what's the reason for the addition of the oil water separator?
That's a requirement for plumbing.
Okay, sorry. All right.
Yeah, when they initially came in, they weren't gonna do any repairs. Now they've decided to do repairs there.
Yes, the service is a main part of their work there.
All the questions I had.
There you go. So, when you cross the water service coming in,
Yes, we had to put the sewer, we had to put you can see there's a widening there. We had to put a concrete encasement in that.
generally that's when you're above the sewer, above the water, not below the water.
So we couldn't locate it below it. It wouldn't, gravity wouldn't allow it to work.
What do you mean, the concrete encasement has nothing to do with gravity.
No, but the pipe, the sewer pipe that's coming around, the pipe that's coming around from
I understand why you have to put the pipe in where you're going. I'm
Yes,
saying when you're crossing the water service coming in,
right.
generally the requirement is you have to encase the sewer when you're above the water, not below the water. As long as you got 18 inches of separation or 10 feet, you're good.
Yes, but the sewer is above the water.
Here it says below. Under the water crossing.
You're correct. I was mistaken. Usually you're correct. It must be because there is an 18 inches of separation, as you said.
Okay. Sewer. There is a catch basin right at the
There is one at that corner. Yes.
southeast corner, yeah.
I'm sorry, I was referring that there was nothing in the back area or over in this corner.
No, I'm just wondering, when Jason brought up the runoff, whether or not that's gonna make it around the back of that site and over to that catch basin. And what the added
Sorry,
flow,
the sewer line you're talking about?
oh no, the drainage off the roof and the extended walkway in the back,
Yes.
that's gonna go to the grass area. Is that graded so it'll come back down around the back side of the building? Cause I don't see any contour lines to get to that catch basin.
It would not make it around to the area. It would overflow to the grassed area to the right.
Now, would it be possible to put a catch basin up in the northeast corner and run that pipe down to the other catch basin? I mean, dig in there anyway,
Yes,
so you can lay them side by side, drain and sewer
right.
around. I don't think it would cost that much, but at least it'll give you ample drainage for the runoff from the roof and the sidewalk, and there wouldn't be any question then.
Okay.
So you're willing to do that? Sure. Okay. Sure, Rakesh.
So originally this was proposed to be just for sales,
Correct.
right? So now we are adding service to it. Shouldn't that then add additional requirements?
That's what the sewer, the oil water separator's for.
Yeah,
It's a grease trap, basically.
I see.
So it separates the two, so they can't, that grease can't get into the sewer
I see.
and get to the plant and have it, because they can't treat oil at the plant.
I'm just curious how you go from they weren't gonna do repairs, he said it's a big part of the business.
Will be. So, under Ron's question there, it sounds like you're already doing they're already doing repairs there.
No, they haven't started, they're still building.
I don't have any major problems, but I would like to ask for a motion to approve with the contingency that they put the catch basin at the northeast corner and tie it into the catch basin down at the southeast corner of that building. And make sure the flow calculations are correct, that it will work and won't overwhelm what's going out into the street. That ties into a street main, I believe, eventually.
So moved.
May I have a second?
I'll second it.
Aye.
Aye.
Jason?
Aye.
So John Regan's aye. It's based on that contingency, but you're all set.
Thank you very much.
Discussion of reorganization?
Yeah.
So when do we have to do that, tonight?
If you don't want to do it tonight, you can wait, but you're all here, so
Yeah, true.
that's up to you.
Huh? Look at-
A nomination.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Hesitated there.
Do I get to vote on that? I'll nominate Jason as vice chairman.
You nominate Jason?
Second. If you need one. I second that. Yeah.
Aye.
Aye.
So aye. You're staying the same, folks.
That's right.
Damn thing.
Dream team continues.
Okay, next is the meeting minutes of 5/28/2024. May I have a motion to approve as submitted?
I'll make that motion.
May I have a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 So Jerry tonight is a vote. May I have a motion to approve the June 11th meeting minutes of 2024 as they were submitted?
I'll make that motion.
May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Ron?
Aye.
Jason is an aye, myself, John Regan's an aye, it is a vote. Is there any unforeseen business by the town planner or?
Just one item, last month, 2 months ago, the selectmen voted to authorize the boards to do away with remote access meetings if they so choose. I can put it on the next agenda for a vote if you like, but if you want to think about that, the next meeting.
We something to think about. Anything else, Adam?
That's it.
I don't have anything to,
The zoning board
Yeah.
of appeals.
may I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
May I have a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 So, Jerry Regan's an aye, it is a vote. The meeting is now adjourned.